Where we going? All right, we're recording. Sweet. Thanks. Today this week we got a really cool guest, Toby, and
Hello. I
this
don't
is
know
our
if I'm really cool, but sure.
Yeah, this is our friend Bret Fointaine. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And
Hi, guys.
From the band Fetch. He's been in many bands, and I've known him for a long time. I've known him like socially. I seems like I see you out in social, but we haven't really. I mean, you give me rides to the city and stuff, but I don't think we've ever hung out. And
it's like only it shows, right?
Yeah,
which is kind of how it goes, right? Especially as we all get older, it's just like the only time we're out is at shows.
So you're in the band Fetch, right? Fetch, and then okay.
Fetch is the newest project. We have an album coming out next week, November 15th. Our first album. But we go way back, man. So
that's where I wanted to start. Was like I think that because I met you through Tim.
Yep.
And Over the Falls at your old band.
Right.
And we were let's see, Echodyne, I guess. Me and Toby. Is that where we met? Is that where
that's where I met you. Oh, maybe you and I met at a party before that or something, but more or less that's where we got to know each other. You guys and Jared. And I want to say, I mean, do you know what year Echodyne started? Because I think it was probably the same year Over the Falls started. I think we started pretty much around the same time.
I started it with Ed. Were we playing with you when Ed was in the band?
Oh, I don't think so.
No, we never played a show. I don't think we ever played a show as Dee's Complaint.
That's a long story too. We can get to later, but
all these bands are littered with fallen soldiers, man.
That's exactly right,
dude. It was brutal. I mean, brutal getting rid of people, and that's always hard. But we started it. Me and Ed started it in I think 2006.
Oh, okay.
And then we got Toby in probably the next year, and then Toby and Jared at the same time, I think, right? Toby?
Yeah. We were 4 guitar players trying to figure out how to be in a band. How's this going to work?
Yeah. So Toby had never played bass. I'd never sung in front of the band or wrote songs. And then Jared had never played drums.
Oh, man.
We were kind of like, but I'd been in bands and I kind of knew how I wanted to sound. And so we wrote the first couple of songs that were kind of like jin, 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 jin.
Yeah.
And everybody playing the same thing and kind of chugging along. And then, we started 2006. When did Over the Falls?
So that's what I was trying to think about. So I'm pretty sure Over the Falls started in 2008.
2008.
It probably was like late 2008, I think.
That was our first show, was 2008.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then that's probably when we started, because we kind of hit the ground running pretty fast. I think we started playing shows pretty quick. I feel like Echodyne and Over the Falls were playing together at Quincy's every other week.
Dude, all the time. That's right.
All the time. Well, I know that by the time Over the Falls retired, it was 10 years later, and we had done I think the final count was we did 125 shows or something like that. And I think, 33% of those were at Quincy's.
Nice.
I was at your last show. That was at that place
at
on
Local
Mendel.
Barrel.
Yeah.
Were you at that show, or were you at the retirement anniversary show that we did a year later?
I think I was at your last show. I don't know.
We retired, and then a year later, it was like, hey, let's do one more. All right. Fuck it.
Nice.
Oh, can I swear? Do you care?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Swear. Go away.
Okay. Cool.
Swear away.
Yeah.
That's what, 2008. And then we played, I think our best shows that we've ever had were at the Forceville Club with you.
Oh, yeah, man. Those were some fun ones.
Yeah.
And probably Aubergine too, right? We played
Aubergine. Yeah, that's
right. Yeah. Did we play Aubergine? Yeah, we did, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, we sure did.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But yeah, man, those were fun times. We had Over the Falls was a super fun band. We had so much fun. And the only reason we called it quits was kind of we kind of had got to a point where we were just jamming, like having more fun, just like doing band practice and getting together. And I think Ryan, the drummer, finally got to a point where he was like, like I'd kind of like to do a little bit more. Sorry, my work phone was going off. Like he's like, I kind of would like to do more than just get together on Wednesday nights and smoke weed and play the same songs over and over again. We're like, that's fair. So the rest
you guys were always good. You guys sounded like, I think in terms of local bands go, or as far as local bands go, like I think that you either, especially in this area, you either fall into like blues or heavy metal or kind of like punk.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any kind of, and I think for us, we didn't want to back ourselves into a corner in any of those. And I think you guys were the same way because you guys always had these elements of all those things.
Yeah, we tried to.
Chris started singing.
I don't think it was like conscious decision, but we just never figured like one type of sound we wanted to do. We always like wanted to have like some bluesy songs. So Chris could sing with his low voice and do things. But also we were like metalheads, so we would want like aggressive songs and punk songs about silly shit and and then Tim's just ridiculous, amazing songs that Tim would write. Like it was cool. It was definitely like a 4 guys, because at first it was 4 of us for years. Just 4 guys like throwing shit at the wall. Just being like, let's make it work. It all was based on riffs, right? It was just like riff rock, and whatever the riff, like whatever direction it took, that's where we took the song or whatever. But we kind of like, I think prided ourselves on being like weird and different without being weird, without being
without trying to be. That was just kind of an out.
Yeah, exactly. It was great times, man. I would not be surprised if there was another anniversary show sometime, but maybe we'll do like a 10-year retirement anniversary in 2028.
Let's absolutely.
Yeah.
The term that if anybody ever asks, well, because we've all got the album. You had 2 albums. Yes, Have Some.
Yeah. Yes, Have Some. The Sleepy EP was the first one.
The Sleepy EP was the first one. Okay. Yeah. So I've got them both, and I still listen to them to this day.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great that you still have Yes, Have Some, because you can't, I don't know, it's not on Spotify or anything. I don't know what we did that screwed up the release of that song. Or that album. But you can find the first one, the Sleepy EP, and the last one, And We'd Be Happy. Those are both on Spotify and Apple and all that stuff, but the middle one is like gone. It's no, don't lose your CDs.
Right. Is the term it's very tongue in cheek. It's hilarious, and it absolutely rocks. I mean, just the title alone of Yes, Have Some is like Steve and I to this day. We'll just out of nowhere, yes, have some. It's you have to know that Ghostbusters line.
I know,
so freaking good.
Yeah.
Oh god.
I know, man. We really are. We patted ourselves on the back a lot.
You should have absolutely.
But that's the best part, man. Like being in a band where you could just be like, this idea makes me smile. And it made everyone else in the room smile. So like, cool. All right, we're going to do it.
It's also too, it's also like a kind of like an in, if you know it, then it's like, oh, okay. All right. This band.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and the cup of coffee on the cover too is
exactly. Yeah.
And if you don't know it, it's not going to make any sense.
I know. Yeah. People are like, this isn't grammatically correct. No. Like, what is this?
That's right.
Well, I'm glad it like still sticks with you, man. I'm glad you like.
Absolutely, dude. I'm still laughing about it. Like anytime I'll just be driving down the road and I'll just start giggling. I'm like, yes, have some. So
that's
good.
Awesome. Man. I listened to "And We'd Be Happy," which was the last album we did. Sometime like 6 months, sometime in the recent memory. It just like popped into my head, and I was like, oh man, I haven't thought about this album in years. So I like listened to it, and I was like, we did pretty good, man. Like we did a good job. Especially that album was like most of it was self-recorded with Hamish. So you guys know Hamish Simpson.
Oh, yeah.
So most of that album was recorded at Hamish's garage, and he mixed and engineered everything, and it was like me and him like in his garage, and like the other guys whenever they could get there, like just doing like mixing it to death. But I think we did a really good job. And Hamish, like obviously Hamish did a great job with it. But it took so long because we're doing this on like adult schedule at this point. We all have day jobs. Like several of the guys had kids at this point. That it took so long that by the time we were almost done mixing, we had written like 3 new songs. So we went to the Pus Cavern in Sacramento where we had done the previous 2 records and did like 3 more songs, and then made that's how we got like I think 12 or 13 total songs on that album, and did a pretty good job of like trying to balance the sound. That was a tricky part, like making a cohesive album out of 2 wildly different recording situations. Because at the Pus Cavern you do things like the Pus Cavern's a like pretty well-known studio. Like Cake did most of their albums there. Silver Sun Pickups did stuff there. Joe Johnston is the guy that runs that place. Awesome dude. And anyway, so that was like, super top of line pro studio. And then Hamish like doing all these things on his own, like built inside his garage studio. And the fact that we got it to sound as cohesive as it did is, I mean, A testament to Hamish, and B, just a testament to, I think, to the band. At that point, we'd been a band for probably like 7 or 8 years. And so we were like pretty tight. So it was, we were able to kind of like transplant these ideas into different situations and make them still sound like one thing.
Oh, sweet, man.
Didn't know that. You can't tell by listening to it at all. I mean, it's really well mastered. Yeah. And Hamish, you were in a different band with Hamish, weren't you?
Hamish had Rectifier, which was the Rectifier was his baby. That was like his project. And he asked if we would essentially be like the backing band for him. So Ryan and Tim and I basically like joined, and Hamish was like lead guitar and vocals. And that was incredible. Rectifier, Hamish's songs are unreal. That guy, like, I love the music that he writes, man. And that was really cool to be asked to be a part of that and do that for a little while. And then we kind of like we right around the time that Over the Falls was powering down was the time that Hamish was like, oh, okay, I'm going to take Rectifier in a different direction, but yeah, that was super fun, man.
Didn't we play in San Francisco with you guys?
That one.
Was that Hotel Utah? Where was that?
No, that was it was on Polk, and it was like upstairs. The club was like upstairs.
Oh yeah, we did play that show together.
That place. Oh, we played there.
Yeah, did we play over Rectifier or did we play over the Falls?
We played with Over the Falls. It was in the Tenderloin. What is that?
Yeah, I know. I can't remember the name of it. We played there a few times.
Upstairs. It was on Polk and like not Sutter.
It's like a pizza parlor, but upstairs was a big room.
Yeah. What was that place?
And they said something like, "Hey, well, 4 Horsemen were here a week ago for a surprise show."
Yeah.
And I didn't know who that was, and they're all, it's Metallica, but it's I'm like, here, this
little place.
Yeah, it was tiny, right?
Yeah.
It was good sound.
It was good
great sound.
I just remember it had great sound in that place. So after you went to Over the Falls, when did you get a hold of like Fetch and tell us what you're doing now musically?
So basically what happened was so concurrently with Over the Falls and before Over the Falls there was the Business End, which was the punk band the punk band that Mike Ward and Noah Smith and I had started in 2003. So predated Over the Falls by quite a few years. And we were running together at the same time for a while. We kind of had a falling out with Noah due to legal issues. Not our legal issues. So we kind of Business End kind of went quiet for a little while Over the Falls was running, And then after some time went by, like actually my soon to be, well, he is now, but at the time he wasn't yet, my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, Neil, had moved back into the area, and the business had kind of like started back up, but I wasn't in it because I was just too busy with other stuff at the time. Neil jumped on board, and then they were like, you should really come back. And it was like, okay. So I came back, and then after time, Noah had troubles again. so like the band kind of like, you know, called it pretty much went on like a big hiatus. And then after a couple of years, we got hooked up through Mike's friend, Chris. We got hooked up with Trey Durbis, who is the, at the time was the drummer for Heart Sounds, which was a band on Epitaph that was doing really well. And we convinced Trey to like come drum for us. And so Trey was our drummer for about a year. And this was like 2014. And then in about early 2015, he was like, hey, I've got a side project that we're starting to get going with Ben Murray from also from Heart Sounds. He's the guy that runs Creator Destructor Records. And he and Ryan Hansen were and Trey were forming this group of like, you know, blackened thrash metal. And he was like, would you come play bass for this? And I was like, yes, please. Like, this is a huge deal. Because that was intense to go like, you know, I basically got like the 5 demos that they'd been working on. It was like, okay, figure it out and show up. And it was like, shit. And they're just like these 2 to 3 minute, just like insane riff fests. And so I went and like tried out essentially and like got the job. And that was Wilderness Dream. That was where Wilderness Dream formed in 2015. And so it was with that was like a huge turning point in my, like career music wise, because it was really like all of a sudden it was kind of like, I don't mean this in a negative light about like Over the Falls, but it was kind of like stepping up to play with some guys who were like pros. Like who were doing it for a living, more or less, you know? And so that was incredible. Like our second show was in Florida at Fest, you know?
Oh, wow.
Like 2 months after we had formed the band, you know? So it was just all of a sudden just like go. And so doing Wilderness Dream for a while, I obviously got close with Ryan, who was the lead guitar player. And we played for like 4 years before the band kind of finally fell apart. And over those 4 years, they had this old like melodic death metal band called Light This City that had some like big success and then kind of had broken up. And that's when they formed Heart Sounds. And then Light This City had gotten back together and was having success again. And they asked me to do some tours with them. And so after doing those tours and all the Wilderness Dream tours we had done together over the years, Trey and Ryan and I had gotten really close. So fast forward to basically summer 2023, I guess. Neil from the business end and Trey and I had written a lot of songs for the business end that were kind of going in a different direction. We kind of were not feeling the pop punk thing that the business end always was. We were like, let's play something a little more like interesting, more like what we wanted to do at the time. And that kind of coincided with Mike from the business end kind of getting to a point where he wanted to go try something new, like career wise, and move to LA. And so we all kind of amicably shut the band down. And the business end still exists. It's just, if we're ever going to be in the same place, we will play a show. It's just, you know, right now it's just quiet. And so we said to Mike, like, hey, these songs that Neil and I wrote and that Trey helped us figure out, do you mind if we like do something else with these? And he was like, of course. So the first idea was to call Ryan from Light the City and Wilderness Dream and Glacier Eater also, which is another thing I'll talk about. And so
the great name.
The moment we got Ryan on
Glacier Eater, I love it. I'm writing all these down, dude. I gotta Light the City sounds cool.
Light the City is rad.
Okay.
Wilderness Dream was sick. Like we had 2 EPs and they fucking rip, man. I am not shy about saying that band was the shit.
Right on.
Good. In there for a second, because I think Oh, you touch upon, I think, what a lot of musicians kind of, or at least I did, and sometimes they struggle with that step up, because you're playing with your buddies and you're playing with, you're big in the scene or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden you're asked to kind of go out and do this other thing that's kind of more national,
right?
As opposed to just local. I remember for me in 2000, I met this dude who had already been signed and to Capitol Records, and he already had a band, and so that band broke up. He was putting together another one, and he had all this stuff. He was all like managers and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Hey man, come play with me and play this." And at the time I didn't know what I didn't know. So it was kind of like, how did you deal with that? Is that a mind fuck, or is that?
It was a big mind fuck, man. It did. Yeah. It also did not help that the very first practice I went to with them, we like smoked a monster joint, and I got so in my own head that and I'd been a guy that like was smoking weed all the time, and like playing stoned and not giving a shit. That was the start of me like not smoking weed before shows anymore or anything like that, because I was just like, no, man, I can't let that happen.
No.
It was a big mind fuck, man. It was it helped that like Trey and I were already bros, at that point. So I knew that I had like a buddy in there that even if it didn't go well, like I was still going to have my friend and it wasn't going to be the end of the world.
Right.
But it helped that I had those demos and I just fucking buckled down and learned those songs, man, and just like focused on it. And I think a large part of it was that the demos were so good. They were really, well thought out songs. It was hard. I didn't really I learned them as best as I could, but there were so many riffs that I couldn't figure out, Dude, but what I did do was listen to them dozens and dozens and dozens of times. So when I was in the room and Ben or Ryan were like, okay, it goes like this, it was, my brain knew what was supposed to happen. It was just teaching my fingers what to do.
Right.
So that's kind of how I handled it. And that's how I handled when they asked me to do the Light the City tours, because I was never in that band. I just toured with them on the East Coast in Canada and toured Europe with them. And it was always just I would have a month's notice or something. And it was just, okay, tell me all the possible songs and I'm just going to sit down. And my wife, bless her heart, has heard Light the City songs hundreds and hundreds of times, because it's just me every day in this room, just blasting it and just figuring it out,
well, what was your welcome to the professional life moment? Did you have one of those?
Well, the funny thing is, it's still because that band Wilderness Dream never broke big, but I would say the welcome to this moment was our first show. We opened up for some metal band, Belphegor, I think it was. We opened up for Belphegor at the Metro in Oakland, the new Metro. And so the very first set we played, we were playing, even though we were the opening band, there was 400 people there. And so it was just oh shit. This is what this band is,
Right. Yeah.
And not every show was like that. We played plenty of small shows and stuff, but we did get to play quite a few big shows. And I would say that was the first moment. And then maybe the next thing after that would be people I didn't know spotting me at other shows and being oh, you're in Wilderness Dream. That band's sick. And I'd just be what?
That's cool.
Okay, cool. Especially you're at a show, some random show in San Francisco, and someone would be oh yeah, I know you from that band. We saw you a month ago or something, and be
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, dude. That kind of shit.
Because I had a moment where, so when that guy said, yeah, play bass for me, and I had my bass, and in fact, I had to get it from Tim. Oh no. Hey Tim, I need my bass back, because I let him borrow it. And
which bass was that?
I got my bass, and we were practicing because we were having some shows in LA, and we'd have to go down to LA and have we played 2 showcases and stuff. And I remember I didn't practice one day out of the week, and we practiced on Wednesdays, and so we went on Wednesday and we were playing, and after practice, the guy goes, you didn't practice this week, did you? And I was like, Uh, uh, yeah, I mean, I skipped yesterday, and because I was tired. And he's like, dude, and he kind of gave me the riot act of like, hey man, you got to practice. You get, this thing has to, this and that and the other thing. And he wasn't being a dick about it, but he was kind of like, this is, if you want to do that. Cause I told him when I joined and he asked me what I wanted to do. And I was like, well, I want to be a musician. I want to play with like, go on tours and all that kind of stuff. Cause I was like 26, 27. And he was like, well, and he had already done all that. And he was 32, 33. And he was like, and he knew a lot of people in the business. And he was like, well, if that's what you want to do, this is how you have to do it. And you have to write, and they taught me how to write, you have to write songs. You have to write, even if they're bad, just keep writing. He taught me a lot of things. But that was my first moment of like, good Lord. Okay. Yeah. All right.
I mean, that's pretty awesome. It's like a wake up call, right? But it's pretty awesome. Yeah. It's awesome you had that, Yeah. It was pretty cool. Practice was the way I got into it, just freaking practicing. And I definitely learned how to be more disciplined about that sort of thing from that experience. And ever since I've been able to for like Glacier Eater, for example, I was asked to join that band and to record bass for their album that was recording in a month.
Oh, wow.
A fully written album. And if you ever listen to that album, you'll be like, whoa, that's a lot to learn in a month. Like it's Riff City, man. And it's incredible. I actually have practice with them tonight, our first practice in a few months, which I'm super excited about. But I also am like, I had to practice Monday night and Tuesday night to even though at this point I've played those songs hundreds of times, it was like, I got to get these like out of here and back to here, and so that experience is what taught me that like, you just got to like make the reps and then it'll happen, which has allowed me to do so much like other stuff. Like I just recently joined up. Do you guys know SPF 1985? They're a local, you remember the Illuminarly, right? The surf band.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I don't, but yeah.
Yeah. So Derek from the Illuminarly, he formed SPF 1985, which is a surf rock band that does like originals and covers, but the covers are all like, it's like My Heart Will Go On and like Sex and Candy and My Hero and stuff. And they're incredible songs, like such amazing compositions and stuff. And the originals are unreal. And that's like the other guys, all the guys in that band, like Gabe and Naveed, are like local, like heavy hitters, So anyway, they in like May, they asked if I could play at the Hen House Festival to fill in for their second guitar player because he couldn't make the show. And it was like, holy crap. I had a lot of other music stuff going on. It was about to happen in the summer. And I was like, oh my God, I have to learn like an hour plus of music. Like, and it was basically like, you're going to more or less have to learn this on your own. Like, Derek, the main guitar player, came and like sat down with me and we had an afternoon in this room where he showed me stuff. And then he and Naveed and I like did a practice, but I actually never practiced with the drummer until we were on stage, at the festival. And because of all that experience years prior, like I had the confidence to do it. I feel like I would have been way too in my own head if I hadn't had that. Because I really wanted to say yes, because I love the band and I was like, this is a great opportunity. Like, and I love to ham it up on stage. Like you guys know from the Over the Falls years, like I love a cover song. Like I love to like do a goofy cover song. So it's just, the repetition of practice got me there.
Yeah. Well, and we're going to talk about your new music Fetch here in a second, but I want to ask you, when did you are you from Santa Rosa? Are you from
no, I grew up in South City, South San Francisco.
Oh, so okay.
I'm not from too far away, but I grew up in the peninsula and I moved up here when I was 20. So I've been up here now 22 years. I've been here longer than I was down there.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, and the thing that actually brought me up here was I had formed I had started this band Burner with some friends that I'd met up here because I have cousins up here. So, and my older sister, she's 4 years older than me, and she's the coolest sister in the world. She used to bring me up here on weekends so we could party and hang out at Higher Grounds and party on Humboldt and just go, introduce me to this whole crew of people up here. And through that, I met like-minded musicians, and we were like, yeah, let's form this like stoner metal band and call it Burner. And so at 20, I had been going to college and just not doing well. My head was not in it. So I was like, screw this. I want to get out of here. I want to change a pace. Moved up to Santa Rosa so I could do the band thing. And the rest is history at that point.
Well, the reason I ask that is Toby, did you have anything you want to ask, or do you want to jump in, or?
And I feel like I'm just talking over everything.
No, go for it.
No, you're fine. You're fine. The reason I was asking was because I had moved to Santa Rosa in 93, the end of 93, 94. And there was such a big music scene here in Santa Rosa. Mm-hmm. Like if you look at it now, if you look at it now, like there's nothing. But I mean, there probably is. I'm just,
I think we're aging out of it a little bit.
Yeah. But it was such a big scene that you could go down and you could see a band. I mean, some of my favorite bands are like Crop Duster. I don't know if you ever heard Crop Duster.
I heard of them. I don't think I ever saw them though.
Yeah, Closing In. There was a band from Oakland that used to come down and play, and there was this little Irish bar where the Russian River Brewing Company is right now.
Oh,
it used to be an Irish pub called the Old Vic.
Right.
And it used to have this little side room, and bands would play in there. And this band from Oakland would come down, and they were a mix. I can't remember the name, or else I would look for them. But they were a mix of like the Flaming Lips and Zappa, Frank Zappa. And they had this thing where they would come on stage and they'd be playing. And then like at a certain point in the song, they would hit a button or something, and they would, this air would fill up into these big like monster things, and there would be a and everybody was just like for the life of me I cannot remember, but they used to come up all the time. And that's how big the scene was here. It was like there was another band called Warsaw out of Arizona. I think it was out of Tucson. And they used to come up here and play whenever they were on tour.
Nice.
And they would stop in Santa Rosa. So
I know.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you knew any of those bands, or that's why I asked.
Yeah, no, I don't think, because I think that was probably a little bit before my time. As far as, because I didn't know much about the Santa Rosa scene until I was up here in 2002. So a lot of the stuff that happened before I was here, I just didn't really.
Yeah, I had moved to the city by then. I think that actually I was in that band. I forget what we called ourselves, but yeah, I was in that band. That I consider that my first band, because that was like such an awakening of like, because before that I had just played in like, with my buddies, we'd jam for a weekend. Hey, let's start a band, and then we would never start a band. And then I started this. And then this guy that was a friend of my cousin's that went to Chico State, he was like, "You should." My cousin kept going, "You should play with this guy. You should play with this guy." And so I was like, "All right." So we got connected, and we're in this band. And all of a sudden, I'm in this band. This is like '98. I just remember the Yankees were playing the Padres in the World Series, and I was in this band with all of these guys, and one of them was the drummer was from the band that I loved, which was Closing In. And if they're on SoundCloud, if you want to look that up, man, they're nice. Pretty cool. But he was in the band, and it was the friend that I knew, and then this other guy, and I was like I was like the weak link of the chain, because I was so intimidated. I had to buy an amp because I just never been in this situation, and I got the same thing from the bass player. At some point, they were just like, "Nah, all right, yeah, later." But for that, like, I think it was about a week, or no, 4 weeks, about a month, that I was in there, and I was just like, just not knowing what I'm doing, and intimidating.
Yeah, and, definitely that reminds me of that.
Part of that, all that scene of like, the Santa Rosa scene, it was pretty big. Hey, Toby, so did you ever hear those bands from? Because
what was the second one you mentioned?
There's Crop Duster and then Closing In.
Closing In, Closing In. I'm familiar with.
Yeah, they said
Crop Duster. I would remember.
That would be another one that you would think of every now and then driving down the road.
Absolutely. Weren't you? Were in 28 If too, weren't you?
That's what it was. That was what we called ourselves, 28 If. That was the band in San Francisco.
Oh, nice.
And it was he had got the name from the license plate of the Volkswagen Bug on the cover of Abbey Road. It's like 28 If, and so that's what we call ourselves. And that
Wasn't he from like Bad Radio too? Was he had played with Eddie Vedder at some point?
Yeah, he was in Eddie Vedder's band before the band right before Pearl Jam.
Nice.
And so he would have me over his house, and he knew I was that's how we were both working at the Virgin Mega store, and we had both started within like a month of each other. And it was like a closing shift at midnight, 1 o'clock, whatever it was. And we had to sit outside the counting room and wait. And he saw I had like a Pearl Jam shirt, I think, or something. I can't remember, but he's like, "Hey, you like Pearl Jam, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was expecting him to give me some shit about it.
Yeah.
But, like, he kind of smiled and he goes, "Oh man," he goes, "You ever hear Bad Radio?" And I'm like, "Of course. Yeah, that was Eddie's band before Pearl Jam." He's like, "Well, I was the bass player in that band." And I was like, "Nah, get out." And we went back to his house and he showed me all these pictures and these tape recordings and VHS recordings and letters and just all pictures. Awesome. And since he was the one that had the car, he would drive Eddie and his girlfriend around all San Diego. They would just drive around and listen to music all the time. And I was just blown away, man.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, yeah. So anyways, yeah.
But yeah, so back to the Santa Rosa thing. I didn't, I do think that the scene kind of crapped out for a little while as far as like bands that were making like big influence. But then again, I mean, like, I don't know, Ceremony is a pretty freaking influential band, and they came from out of here and not, late aughts, right?
You remember Schizo?
Oh, yeah, dude. So I went to Tim had like a little, like sort of like very impromptu, like little birthday get together at Cooperage Brewing in August. He had like been out of town and they came back into town and called us and just, it was basically just us that went and met him. And Schizo was playing that night. And I went up to Lance. I was like,
with Lance?
You're still doing this? And he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm still at it."
I went to school with that guy.
Really? Oh my god!
Yeah, he comes from Hillsburg.
Yeah, I don't think he's doing the vomiting thing anymore.
Yeah,
like
he stopped that.
He stopped that a while ago.
90s. Yeah, in the late 90s, I think, because
no, he was doing it in the 2000s because I played a lot of shows with Schizo. Burner,
because I remember
before Over the Falls played a lot of shows with Schizo.
Wow, because I remember he had to have stopped for a bit because I remember seeing him. I was working
he had like
a Wolf Coffee
with his like esophagus,
and he was like, "Oh, I can't do that anymore," because I would see him in Santa Rosa all the time when I moved to Santa Rosa. But I guess he started.
So Schizo was actually opening for Electric Funeral, which is his Black Sabbath cover band. So they were like the two bands for the night at Cooperage, but full disclosure, I did not stick around for the bands.
I gotta. Oh man, if I see that guy, I gotta say hi to him. He probably won't remember.
It was great to see him, man. It was really cool to see him. Yeah, we used to play a ton of shows together. Did you guys ever play at Jesse Jean's Coffee Beans? It was
where was that at?
Right across the street from the college, from the JC. Where like basically right where Chick-fil-A is now.
Okay.
Like next to it.
Wait.
Like where Wolf Coffee used to be?
I think so. Next to the laundromat. Basically where Brotherhood is now.
Okay.
Where the Brotherhood board shop is now, like next to that. They it was a sketchy place run by a
I saw Eric Lindell. I saw Eric Lindell there play there.
Nice.
There you go. Yeah,
so but the cool thing about that place is they would just put on shows.
Yeah.
And so that was like Burner played there a ton. That was where I first played with like Dos Gringos, which were like Sebastopol kids that Neil, who's my brother-in-law, who I talked about earlier, Neil from Fetch, was in Dos Gringos, and so is Gabe Katz from Weird Mood, one of the other bands I'm in. And Gabe Katz is in 100 bands. Gabe Katz is one of the best freaking drummers ever, and guitar player. It's an incredible musician. But yeah, those guys were like 16 and I was like 18, you know, like we were doing our like shows, and we would play, Burner would play with Schizo there all the time. And he would get the tarp out, and there was like the chick that he would puke on, and it was just like, oh my God. Like, wow, this is a thing. People like it. But anyway, I think the scene, I think that the scene probably struggled for a while, kind of like around the time that we were playing, like Over the Falls and Echodyne. We were like, we're trying to make something happen. But I do think, I definitely think there's a lot of good bands around here right now. Like Nice World is really great. And I mean, SPF 1985 is an awesome band. And gosh, who else? Redwood, who we just played with a couple weeks ago. They kick ass. There's lots of good bands around here, but I think it's probably more having to do with the way the like quote unquote music industry is now. Things are everything is so fractured and different that it's like, what even is really a scene? Like can you really maintain a scene? I know for sure that there's like regions that have great thriving scenes, of course, especially cities, but smaller towns, like Santa Rosa, it's probably hard to kind of like keep things going. But I know, for example, Gabe Katz, you know, does his like unnamed music festival at the Arlene Francis Center, like every 6 months or so, and pulls like 20 or so pretty much local bands. And it is like usually an incredible display of talent, you know? Yeah. Like, do you guys know Grapefruit Moon? They're kind of like an R&B-ish type band. Wow. And they're incredible. They're so good. So yeah, it's always, so there's lots of really talented musicians around here still doing it, but it's like, you know, where do you go to see the show? You know, do you go to Arlene?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I think because you have the JC, the junior college, right, which used to be really good. I don't know if it is or not.
I think it's like highly well-regarded junior college.
Then about like 5-10 miles away, you have Sonoma State. So I mean, you have all these. You know, it's like it's there for the picking. You know,
totally.
I feel like a lot of because there used to be Magnolias. Remember
That's right.
Toby would remember in Railroad Square, like right across from the Omelet Express.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
On that corner across the street, that corner, there used to be this club called Magnolias, and like Quiet Riot would play there. Yep. Twisted Sister, like big bands would come and play there, and that shut down, I think, in like the mid '90s, and then after that, the old Vic shut down. And then the Moonlight. Do you remember the Moonlight? Was the Moonlight here?
I don't think. I think I was here after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that shut down. And I was on 4th Street as well. And everything shut down. And all of a sudden it was just,
I know the Last Day Saloon was around for a while.
Yeah. Last Day would have good shows.
And there were some cool shows there. We played
Did we play there?
Over the Falls. Over the Falls opened for Hatchet there.
Oh, yeah.
And
Hatchet.
Who else? We opened. What's the band? God. Oh, we opened for little person wrestling. I don't know. I don't want to say what they call themselves, like, which was a wild show. But Last Day Saloon would have some good show. We saw Reverend Horton Heat there, which was a great show. But yeah, and that place is now like El Infierno, which is like, I think like a cantina, but they've been doing like hardcore shows there.
Oh, wow.
There's a local guy, Gabe. I can't remember the name of his like booking company. Yeah. But he's been booking like hardcore shows there and at this other like taqueria in town. And those have been apparently like going off, which is great. I think there's a pretty good like hardcore scene around here right now. But I'm not really plugged into it, so I can't speak to it. But from what I could tell from the edges, though, like the shows are going really well. Hardcore in the Bay Area, I think, is having a pretty big resurgence. You know?
Okay, sweet.
Trey, the drummer, Trey Durbis, is in this newish hardcore band called Bite the Hand. And they've been, doing a bunch of like shows, local shows, and they've been like selling out and having like, he said they did a house party in San Jose that 500 kids showed up to like a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And it's like, holy crap, man. So hardcore, I think, is definitely a scene that's coming back around here.
Well, I think I just recorded a song this weekend down in LA. My cousin-in-law, he has his own little studio in his house, and he's got Pro Tools, and he's kind of convinced me to buy all this equipment and start recording here because he goes, I think you've pretty much done everything you can with GarageBand because that's all I record on GarageBand. And so, it was pretty cool. But that's what I kind of was asking you at the last show that I saw you at, was like, hey, can you help me, like play these songs?
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm down.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was hoping. It was that maybe I can, if you guys like played a show, then I could open up and you guys could play, and then
we could probably figure something out. We just got to figure out where to play.
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
playing. So when the Fetch album comes out next Friday, the 15th.
Yeah, let's talk about Fetch.
Okay, yeah. Well, here I'll talk about the show first. Like, we're playing Friday the 15th at Shady Oak, the tap room, barrel house or whatever, near the mall in Santa Rosa. And that's not, it's technically a record release show now. We're opening the show. M Section, the like titans of punk rock, M Section, like asked us if
they're still around.
Yeah, they're still around, man.
They've been around forever.
I know. I think they probably only play a few shows a year.
Okay.
But anytime, they're still the best.
That's rad, dude.
They rule. I love them so much. Those guys are so good. They asked us if we would like open the show, and we were like, yeah, sure. Do you mind if like we picked November is when we were putting the album out. So we were like, do you mind if we call this like a record release show, even though like we're the opener? And they're like, yeah, that's great. So Shady Oak is a place to play, which is a super fun place with a lot of room and a big stage, but it's also a big warehouse. So it sounds, you don't need to bring a reverb pedal. That's for sure. It just kind of goes in there. But anyway, so Fetch. So we,
what is that? When is that show?
November 15th.
November 15th.
Yeah. And it starts at 7:30. So we're playing at 7:30. And then I think 11 Teen, Guns for Sick Children, and M Section are the other bands on the bill.
Who's the middle one?
Guns for Sick Children.
Guns? Okay.
Yeah. I think they're relatively new. I know one of those guys, Jake, and they're pretty rad. They're going to be fun.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Cool. And they are they're a nonprofit organization, are they?
Yeah. They collect guns. And then they go to St. Jude's. They just try.
So how long did it take for you to record this album?
So we kind of so like I had said, we had more or less written the 6 songs, because it's I guess it's technically an EP, but it's also 27 minutes long, so we're calling it an album. So it's we had more or less written the six songs and had them like demoed when we brought Ryan into the fold and kind of changed the direction. And he, his influence and his like incredible guitar playing and also just musical knowledge and his like ability to sing harmonies and stuff kind of like helped us change the songs and shape them into a new thing. And that was, I want to say we probably first jammed in like July of 2023, maybe even August. And we played our first show in October. And it went really well. We got a great reception. We opened one of those, the fests I was talking about at the Unnamed Music Fest.
I was there. I think I was there.
Yeah. And had a bunch of friends come out and got the reaction from friends that were like, oh, this is really good. And we were like, oh, cool, thanks.
That's good. I like that.
So we played one more show, but we had a deadline, which was Neil and his wife were having twins in January. So this was October, we played the first show, and then we picked up another one in November. And we were like, oh, we need to bottle this momentum right now. So we lucked out in the sense that Neil's and my wife's uncle, Bill Gibson, he's the drummer of Huey Lewis and the News. And he had built himself in recent years, just like 4 or 5 years ago, built himself like an amazing home studio, like separate building behind his house, top of the line studio, like incredible space. And he had been bugging us like, hey, come to the studio, come do stuff, you know, like I'm bored. So we had free studio space. So we hired Scott Goodrich, who's a local engineer who has done so many incredible things. He like, look him up, Scott K. Goodrich. Listen to anything that he's recorded. He's done incredible work. He's a rad dude. We had worked with him. The 2 Wilderness Dream albums were recorded with him, and the last Business End album was recorded with him. So we had like a working relationship. We're like, hey, come up to Novato, and like, let's do this record. So we got into the studio. We basically like crammed over the end of 2023 to get ready for the studio recording in December. And we had this weekend lined up where it's like, okay, we're going to do 3 days and we're just going to try to get everything done. Because it was only 6 songs. So we're like, we could probably do this. And then the night before we were supposed to start, my wife tested positive for COVID. And so because of like being safe, it was like, okay, I can't go. And especially because Uncle Bill, like, you know, we don't want to bring that into his house, you know, especially with the other band guys, and Neil's got a pregnant wife. It's just like, no, you know, like, those 3 guys had to do these 6 songs without me, which was hard for them and devastating for me. I was at home, just so sad, just like texting, like, send me pictures. give me updates.
Oh, dude,
I was so bummed out, man. The FOMO was like unreal. But they did an incredible job. But it was tough because a lot, especially the songs that I had written, there's some weird time change stuff where it was just kind of like without the bass down. You know, it was kind of ooh, this is tricky. Like, and there was definitely some phone calls where it was like, wait, what are you doing here? And I was like, I'm doing, or like I would record a video and send it to them. And they'd be like, okay, cool. And then, so they did an incredible job. But then like 2 weeks later, when I finally cleared quarantine and wasn't sick and all that stuff, I went down and did all of the bass and all of the vocals in one day, which was insane because I'm the lead singer. So it was like all me, you know, and it was like, I lucked out in that I did the bass pretty fast. I've definitely over the years become a pretty fast tracker when it comes to, especially when it comes to like bass and guitar. So I knocked the bass out in just basically like an hour or something, like an hour and a half. And we also did a really cool thing where I have 2 main bass rigs that I use. I have this Ampeg SVT4 Pro and a Mesa Boogie Powerhouse 1000, which is 4 10s and a 15. And that's my like, that's a rig that I've had forever. You guys definitely, all the Over the Falls shows, we used that.
Yeah. I remember that.
And but recently I had bought this Dark Glass. Have you guys heard of Dark Glass?
No.
They're a Finnish company, like exclusively makes bass amps, like primarily for like gain distortion, you know, like, and it's just like, not only that, it's an amp that's this, like, you know, this big and it weighs 4 pounds.
It's tiny.
It's weird. It's one of those like solid state amps that incredible. And I got like a Dark Glass 212 that weighs 40 pounds. It's the best for a person over 40. The technological revolution in music is the best. Like my back does not hurt nearly as much as it did lugging around on rack. So doing the recording, we set both of those rigs up and like dialed them in for 2 different, like use the Ampeg for a fat clean tone and use the Dark Glass for my like gritty tone. And we also had a, you know, DI of course, and a Sans amp. And so basically I had like 4 bass inputs. And the way we sped things up was I just recorded directly into the board, you know, did the bass like directly into the board. And then in between doing vocal takes, we would just run it into the amps and record it, you know, into the amps like live so I could get like 5 minutes of vocal rest and then do the next like vocal song or whatever.
Right.
So that's how we were able to do it all in one day.
Damn.
Wow.
But anyway, so that was all like end of December, like that's finally done. And then like the twins are coming. So it's like, okay, like, you know, we did the recording. We took our sweet time mixing it because Scott, we paid Scott up front and he was like, take all the time you need. Like take as long as you want. I don't care. It's no, you know, because he was mixing at home at that point. So we basically, I think we took till like May to really finalize it. Because it also kind of, I think, did a good job with the mixing. You like take a month off, don't listen to it, and then come back to it a month later and be like, oh, like I never heard this before. Like this maybe should have turned up or it turned out or whatever. And then so we kind of, you know, once it was done in May, it was a matter of just like kind of picking our spot when we wanted to put it out. And we could tell like summer was going to be kind of busy. I had like weird mood stuff going on. And it like guys had like work stuff, and Neil obviously like Neil's like, I'm not going to be able to play shows for at least 6 months until my kiddos are, you know, a little bit more, you know, I don't want to be leaving the house for, you know, fun band nights and stuff. So we basically waited till late summer to kind of start putting stuff out. And I think we put the first song, Flask Manager, we put that out in late July, and then basically did another song 6 weeks later. And then, the most recent song we put out was a few weeks ago. That was The River. That's the like title track. And now the album's going to come out next week. And
I think Tuck and Roll. That's the one I've been kind of,
Tuck and Roll. Like. Neil wrote that. Neil wrote I did all like the lyrics and like vocal melodies and stuff. Although Ryan helped a lot with the melodies. Neil, that's a Neil special. That riff was like, I think that song is the closest to the original demo.
Oh, really?
All the songs we did. Neil, that song came out of Neil's head, just like formed.
Oh, wow.
You know, I think we just cut and paste some things, you know, like move this around, make this longer. But by and large, that was pretty cool. It's neat. This album is like three songs that Neil started and 3 songs that I started, and they kind of fit together all so well, which really goes to show what Ryan and Trey can do to make these things all fit.
Well, that's the thing. I think you know what I heard when I was playing that was I heard a lot of Iron Maiden.
That's
like,
Ryan.
I hear that. Oh, is it?
That's Ryan for sure. Especially with the dual guitars, the harmony guitars and stuff. Like, that's Ryan's influence right there.
Oh,
when we talk about doing like cover songs, he's like, let's do a Maiden song. I was like, I'm not going to sing freaking Maiden song, man. I'm not doing that.
Well, what was the show that you played at the Phoenix where you guys played a Metallica song?
The Phoenix does they've been doing it like 10 years now. They do their Halloween covers show, right?
Oh.
Where they get local bands to like be, like whoever wants to really. I mean, you got to like ask ahead of time and like sign up for it, but you get to be, you go like, I'm going to be, you know, whatever band. And that was, that year, Brandon from Weird Mood, he's a huge Metallica fan, and he reached out to me, you know, in the summer before that Halloween. It was like, hey, can we do Metallica? Like, would you play bass? And I was like, of course. Yeah. And he's like, do you think we could ask like Ryan to play guitar? And I was like, dude, Ryan knows every Metallica song already, like for sure down. And then getting Trey on board was great. And that was so much fun. We those kids at the Phoenix flipped out, man.
Really?
That was a crazy set. You can find it on YouTube. I think if you search.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah. Like Metallica Halloween covers show, the Phoenix or something like that. You'll find it. And all those bands, like it's usually like 7 or 8 bands. So you got to do like 20-minute sets, and you got to share gear. Just keep the ball rolling. It's a party. Everyone's in costume. You don't want to like drag it down with like the usual load in and all that stuff.
Right.
We headlined. So we were like, we're playing 5 songs, and it took like 40 minutes because they're Metallica songs. And we were like, fucking, like, no one's going to care. Everyone was stoked. And we also like, they tried to say like, because this was all running through Brandon and the guy that runs the show. Brandon told us like, hey, so they really want us to like play hits. That's the kind of point. You're there to like play the songs that everybody knows.
Yeah.
And we were like, nah. And we just did, I mean, because it's Metallica. They're kind of all hits.
Right. Yeah.
So we did 4 songs from Puppets. We just did 4 songs from Master of Puppets. We were like, no, we're just doing Master of Puppets songs. And then we encored with Enter Sandman. We're like, okay. But it was great. So I got to be Cliff Burton. So I got like a red long hair wig, you know, and I got like a jean jacket. I wore like denim on denim and a Thin Lizzy shirt. And I had to play with my fingers, which was wild because that's how Cliff played. So that was pretty insane because I hadn't played fingerstyle for kind of quite a few years. I've been playing pick mostly. And that was intense, but it was so fun, man. That was incredible. And then I did rip the wig off and put on wristbands when we did Enter Sandman so I could be Jason Newsted.
Yeah. Man, I would play, if I ever played that, I would play like Holy Wars Punishment Due. That was my first metal song.
Dude.
That we played, me and my buddies, we had that album and we just played it. We played that, Hangar 18, and then we also played Rain and Blood. And
doing Megadeth would be sick.
Yeah, it's fun. I was trying to play it on my bass the other day. I don't know how I did that.
Yeah, those guys 15 those guys are way too good. The year before, me and the Weird Mood guys did NoFX. And that was sick. And that video on YouTube, same thing, like NoFX Halloween cover show, The Phoenix. You can find it. That video has like 20 or 25,000 views or something.
Is it really?
We're like, what the hell? I think it's because NoFX recently retired, right? They've been doing this 2-year long, 40 shows in 40 cities kind of thing, 40th anniversary. So I think probably the algorithm boosted us just because they were doing that. But also, it was really good. We did it. Yeah. We did a killer job. I didn't really sound. I don't have the same voice as Fat Mike, so I didn't sound like him. But I think we did a pretty good job of like getting the band right and doing stupid shit. Those shows are so much fun.
Yeah, dude, I want to do a show like that. That's fun.
Yeah, they're really fun, man. We've got some good ideas that I don't think people have done yet. Like I'd love to do Queens of the Stone Age or or Faith No More. Yeah. Faith No More would be one that would be pretty damn fun. So yeah, hopefully one of these years we'll get back into it.
Well, hey Tobe, so do you have anything you want to ask or anything you want to add?
I was gonna ask Bret about, and you probably already answered this. You when you're recording, like you had to do this, you had to track your parts for the EP. Do you prefer to play live when you're recording, regardless of the band that you're in, or does it matter what style of music that you're playing and what are your thoughts on that? Do you prefer to play all live in a big room and record the whole thing?
You mean like playing together as a band?
Yeah.
I don't really have one preference over the other. Most of the time lately, it's been, one at a time. But what we tend to do is do scratch tracks of all the instruments while we're tracking the drums. So we are kind of playing live, but really all we're focusing on is the drums. That would say that's the way I've done it, 9 out of the last 10 recordings. This Fetch one excluded because, I couldn't be there that day. Although the Weird Mood recordings are also a little their own new things. But I prefer, what I would prefer at least is to all be there. So at least we can do, like I was saying, do a scratch stuff together. With bass, especially with Pro Tools or Logic or whatever you're using, it's particularly like you can still save time because some albums I've done, like, I was doing scratch bass while we were focusing on the drums, but we were also keeping those bass takes, and you just take notes like, hey, the drums might've been good for take 2, but the bass was really good on take 3. So let's just use take 3 of the bass. Cause usually we're playing to like a click, so we can use different takes if we need to. So that's a great way to save time and still like kind of get like a live feel to it, but I would say I being able to play as a band and recording live is pretty fun, but it's way more pressure, to do it that way. You got to be like nails. Like there's a band, some buddies of mine, they're in a band called Gygax, who are like a D&D themed Thin Lizzy band, like essentially. Like all the songs are about D&D stuff, but they sound like Thin Lizzy. They're an incredible band, and they did their second album live, like not at a show, but they did it all. Actually, Scott Goodrich, the same guy, recorded it, and it was a big undertaking for them to do it. And you listen to that album, first off, you can hear it. You can hear how they're breathing together, you know, like the pocket will move, but it moves like all together. And when you know that and you're aware of that, it's so impressive because their guitar work and drums and bass are all really intricate and really, because it's all like Thin Lizzy style stuff. So just riffs on riffs. And it's pretty like, it's really impressive when you're a band and you can pull that off. But it's exponential amount of pressure because what if you're the one guy that fucks up the take, you know? It's just like, oh God, you know, like, you know, and maybe you can do it now. If you're in a big enough studio, you can do it live where everyone's isolated. And if you fuck up a take, it doesn't matter. You can go back and do your take and it doesn't fuck up anyone else's. But if you're all in the room together, it's like, nope, you got to hit the right notes. Otherwise that's going to show, that sour note's going to show up on the guitar tracks, you know? So
it's like the Beatles, man. The Beatles, when they would record, it was like, they had to do it all in one room and then they would go do overdubs after that.
Yeah. And I mean, like so much music has been recorded like that. And also music shouldn't necessarily be perfect. So you can get in your own way by doing things separately and just doing take after take after take to nail it. It's like, no, you kind of lose something if you try that. So it is a balance, but I would say the one thing that I really prefer is just everybody being there, even if we're not all recording at the same moment. Because, you know, like when I did the Glacier Eater album, they had all recorded by the time that we did bass last, you know, and that was like a little bit weird, but they knew the song so well that they recorded excellently before the bass was there anyway. And it was, you know, it was fine because they were all still in the control room with me when I was doing the bass. So they would be like, oh, that was really good. Or like, try that again, you know. It makes things faster, I think. Faster and easier to have your guys with you there, assuming you're all on the same page and you're not going to snipe at one another for, you know, perfectionism or anything like that. Yeah.
You answered my next question, which is if you're going last, you're sitting in with the engineer, tooling around, noodling with your bass that's not plugged into anything. It gives you a little bit more time to I get practice before you're going to record. I mean, we all get nervous when we go in there and the engineer's looking at you through the window.
Yeah.
And you're like, thought I knew these songs and my mind just went completely blank.
Yeah. And that harkens back to what I said earlier about learning that like repetitive, like excessive practice before I need to do anything.
Yeah.
That's what gets me through now, being able to do these like shows or these recordings. Like I said, I did the Fetch album in like an hour or an hour and a half, which is, I mean, it's only 30 minutes, 27 minutes of music, but that's like multiple takes just for safety and stuff. Like, I feel like we probably used my first take on most of those songs especially because I had 2 extra weeks to practice because I was sitting alone like in my room, just like, well, I'm just going to play these over and over again. But yeah, it's definitely like, it can be nerve-wracking being in the studio for sure. But fortunately, I think I've done it enough now that it's like a little bit like it's not as intense, you know. Still get nerves before a show, but recording not as much.
Well, when me and Toby would play, I mean, Toby was a natural. Toby, I would just be like, Toby, we're going to learn a song. And then Toby would be like, all right. And we would show up at rehearsal and you'd have it all memorized.
Well, I don't do, you know, when you don't know that you can't do it, there's a lot of stuff that you can do, you know?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
That's a great way to look at it.
That was the beauty, I think, of in Echodyne. We always had, there was always like this external drama that we're dealing with. But when we would always play, it would always just be like, yeah, okay, this is why we're doing this, you know?
Yeah.
And you brought that, hey, you didn't practice this week mentality into our band, our rehearsals. And I'd be like,
yeah, I did.
You can tell. He could tell immediately because so it's funny that you mentioned that earlier today because I'm all, I remember those.
Yeah, but Toby didn't get any of that. It was mostly toward our drummer.
Well,
I think that was.
I wasn't going to say anything there, but I was like,
oh man.
Yeah, I was. That was a big learning experience for me because I'd never, I knew. I think that's interesting that you bring that up, Toby, because it's that thing of when I went down, we did a demo down in Burbank in like 2001, and the engineer guy that was doing our demo, he was a known guy. He'd engineered a bunch of albums in the 80s and stuff. And he was like, "Oh, I have this band coming by." And this band just showed up and was like, "Hey man, hey Mike, how you doing?" And they were talking for a while, and then they left. And Mike Blum, that was the guy. He was like, "Hey, oh yeah, I'm gonna get these guys. I just recorded them. I'm gonna put them on the show, The Wire. Have you guys ever heard of that?" And I was like, "I think so. It's on HBO, right?" But then he showed us. He's, "Oh, you guys want to hear?" And he played it, and it wasn't anything like. I mean, it sounded like a high school band to me, and it made me realize, oh, okay, it's not so much about talent as it is about kind of, being at the right place at the right time or knowing somebody. And so I think when in Echodyne, I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to explain it, but it was like, it's not as far away as I thought. And so it's just right there. It's to do what I want to do. It's not that far away. It's so accessible. And all we have to do is kind of do this, this, and this. And it's not going to be easy, and that's kind of why I was such a workhorse, was because I was like, we could get a band and we could go down to LA. I know some people and we could do this and we could do that. And, it just wasn't, it was kind of like, me and Toby, I think we're more on the same page a lot of the times. And it was like, that was just my message was like, let's go.
I know it can be tough when like if not everybody is on the same like energy wavelength.
Yeah.
Because it's really I am well aware that I'm really lucky to have landed in a lot of bands where I was on the same. We were all on the same wavelength, and we all put in enough reps so that we can have fun. Like, I think that's a through line with like every band that I've been in, even Wilderness Dream, which was, like I said, was blackened thrash metal. We were, our sets were 18 minutes of just like, fuck, just like, oh my God. Like there wasn't a lot of like smiling while we were playing, but the second we were done, we were all just like, hi, that was fun. That was a good time, guys. Like, and I've always been in bands where we're all just like really smiley dudes, more or less, which is great. Like it's a pretty lucky thing to be in a band with like friends, and that was a good thing about it. I was pretty lucky to have Toby and Jared, because we were all learning together, and we were all kind of like learning how to play, I still can't sing, but
we were working together too.
And it was just fun. It was fun to do that with your buddies,
Yeah, totally, man. That's why I keep doing it, man. Keeps me sane, man. Like,
well, hey, thanks for coming on, Bret.
Thanks for really asking me. This was great. We didn't even get to talk about the thing.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, no.
You liked the thing. You liked our podcast.
I listened to the whole episode about the thing. I don't want to take too much longer because
your thoughts.
Your thoughts.
My drummer's been texting me because like we got to go down to Oakland for glacier practice. But I saw the thing for the first time 3 weeks ago.
What?
So it's wild. I'd seen bits and pieces on TV through the years, like you can't avoid it. And so, but Megan and I were like looking for a movie to watch like over the course of a weekend. And we, one night, like Saturday night, I was like, oh my God, I found it on Amazon or whatever. I was like, I've always wanted to watch this. Have you ever seen this? And she was like, no. And she was pretty skeptical about it. I was like, come on, it's John Carpenter. It's going to be great. And holy shit, that movie rules.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it shows its age in some ways, more in like the pacing. It feels like the pacing it feels very much like an 80s movie. I don't think the special effects, like, they look, they show their age too, but they're so well done and so outlandish. Like the freaking when he does the defibrillator and the chest opens up as a mouth and just like bites his arms off. It's like, what the fuck just happened?
Dude, right?
Yeah, and that's definitely a movie that I've been thinking about ever since. So it was so great to listen to your podcast about it because you guys also, and I assume everyone is like, you can watch it like Toby was saying, you could watch it 100 times, and every time when it's done, you'll be like, "Ooh, was this actually what happened?"
Yeah,
a great freaking movie.
Yeah, you have to check out the Silver Bullet episode too. We have a lot of fun on that.
Oh, nice, awesome.
That's some crazy fun on that one.
That same weekend we watched Sicario, which is a movie that I've never seen. Have you guys both seen that?
Yeah.
Also an amazing movie. Holy crap.
With Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah, that guy. Like, because we love the Dune movies.
Yeah.
And we actually didn't know when we picked it. And we didn't realize it was him until like the credits rolled, and it was like, oh, no shit. That would explain some of those, like the scenes at the end of that when they do like the raid in the tunnel. Some of the coolest cinematography ever, man.
Yeah. Well,
Steve and I talked about this when we were talking ahead of time. Like, we should do a movie podcast with Tim. Let's get Tim on board and do a chat about something, because Tim would love to do that. Maybe we can
dude.
Figure
I think he has like every other Friday off, and I don't know which Friday he has off. So I think the last time I saw him was probably about a year ago. Yeah.
Tim will make it work.
We'll make it work.
Yeah.
But thanks for coming on, man. And
totally. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah. So check out, look for Fetch next week, November 15th. We'll be at Shady Oak, but the album comes out. It'll be on all the streamers and stuff. And we have a Bandcamp. It's fetchmusic.bandcamp.com. And if you're finding us on the streamers, it's stylized all lowercase because there's a million Fetch bands out there. We thought about changing it. We were like, no, we like it. Like, as my wife said, it's a dog whistle for millennials. It's just like, you are totally right about that. But yeah, and we have we have t-shirts and coffee. We have I saw that coffee, which is really good. It's brewed by or roasted by Sunshine out in Forestville. And we're trying to make Fetch happen, man.
Cool, man. Yes. All right. Well, cool, man. And so thanks again, Brett and Toby. Thank you for joining us. That was awesome.
Awesome.
And we'll see you again next week.
All right.
Thank you.
Good to see you, dudes.
Bye. You too.